You're listening to The Frieze by NYY Recaps. I'm your host, Derek Lewandowski. Let's get started. It is not going to be pretty when the Mets fans take over the Bronx this weekend. About a month ago, I thought that maybe adding Ketel Marte would be enough of a solution to help the Yankees get going. He is, after all, the exact type of player that the Yankees need more of. Contact hitter, switch hitter, speed, defense, versatility, a little bit of power, spark plug, energy. He even has hamstring issues. Perfect for the Yankees. But even if the Yankees were to get somebody like Ketel Marte, they're still flat out built poorly. Let's break it down. Right field in Yankee Stadium is 314 feet, and in right center it's 385. In between there's no weird alleys, no big funky brick walls, there's no high scoreboards or any kind of weird dimensions. It's just a regular fence that eases its way out, and it's easy to reach for most left-handed batters. In left field, it's 318 feet, but it gets deeper much more quickly and ultimately goes out to Death Valley at 399 feet. Yet for some reason, the Yankees have 8 regulars on their roster who are right-handed, and a lefty in center field whose bat speed has gotten too slow to pull the ball to right field, and also they hit mostly ground balls. That's no fun. This is malpractice, plain and simple. I love some of the righties we have. Voit, Judge, Urshela, all these guys are dangerous. Sanchez has been swinging the bat better lately. Stanton has his moments. DJ actually uses right field, so he's not a bad righty to have. On paper, the Yankees' righties are good. They're so good it shouldn't matter. But something that does matter is that the game is not played on paper. When a pitcher consistently faces the same type of hitters, big righties, he can get into a rhythm of pitching to a certain area. You've heard David Cohn talk about lanes. Or of throwing certain pitches. You can get into a rhythm throwing your slider or your changeup. This Yankees lineup needs to give pitchers a different look. Plain and simple. There should be no fewer than 3 or 4 lefties in the lineup on any given day. And that means you got to move some guys. The obvious spots to do this are left field, where the Yankees are running out there Miguel Andujar and Clint Frazier every day. I still think Miggy's going to hit, but at this point he's not doing enough damage, and Clint Frazier is lost in space. He's never going to hit in New York. New York has beaten Clint Frazier, and Clint Frazier looks to have beaten himself just by judging his body language. Brett Gardner has no business being in a major league center field at this point in his career. He's a decent outfielder, but there are plenty of guys that you can get to play the outfield that can also put up at least a fight offensively. Those are the 3 spots where you can add left-handed bats. A couple of outfielders, a starting left fielder, a 4th outfielder, and a center fielder, without upsetting the roster too much. Let's address the elephant in the room, though, the Giancarlo Stanton contract. Giancarlo was an exciting move. Giancarlo was an impulse buy after Shohei Ohtani chose Los Angeles, but he can't play the field anymore, despite being a pretty good outfielder when the Yankees traded for him. He's the same type of hitter as Aaron Judge, only older, slower, and worse. He makes over $20 million a year, can't play defense anymore, and he's got a full no-trade clause and only wants to play in New York or LA. There's only 2 ways you could get rid of Giancarlo Stanton off this roster, and neither of them is very promising. Option 1 is that you just release him and pay his contract. Given how frugal the Yankees are, there's almost no way that they would do this. It would give them roster flexibility, but it doesn't do anything to change the payroll. Somebody would just sign Giancarlo Stanton to the minimum contract and let the Yankees pay the bill for him being in the lineup for the next 6 or 7 years, filling up their stadium. It's not going to happen. The other move is that you could convince Giancarlo Stanton and another team that a trade would work. Giancarlo could waive his no-trade clause, though it would require some kind of a concession from the Yankees, maybe buy him a yacht or a private plane, I don't know. It would also require Giancarlo to go to a team that needs a right-handed power hitter that can only DH. The Yankees would also have to eat a significant portion of that contract, so it's not going to be easy. Removing Giancarlo from the roster would be the best way to create roster flexibility. Now, you can give Judge and Sanchez more days at DH, and Miguel Andujar wouldn't have to play the outfield all the time. He could be your DH. I'll address later where I think would be a good fit for Giancarlo, but for now, let's move on. If the Yankees truly believe that they're out of it, that they're not going to win anything this year, then Aroldis Chapman is somebody the Yankees should be open to moving as well, to open up some roster space and some payroll flexibility. He's signed through 2022. He's having a good season, though not as good lately. And he never pitches because you never have a lead late in the game anymore. If the Yankees truly believe they are out of it, they should move Aroldis Chapman. He's got a limited no-trade clause, so he can't be traded to California teams or to Seattle without his consent. But I bet the Mets would take him. I bet the White Sox and Indians would both take him. Any team that's close and in a pennant race and wants an extra bullpen arm, Chapman can be a difference maker. We saw that in 2016. I'm sure he'd rather pitch in the playoffs than watching the postseason, given his competitiveness and given how his postseason history has shaken out the last couple years. Also, Houston would probably take him too, though I don't know that the Yankees would deal with Houston. Seems to be some bad blood there, although they have pretty much a new front office. Another guy I would consider moving is Luke Voit. He's under team control until 2025, according to Baseball Reference. He has had a lot of health issues, but he's shown that he has the power and can be a difference maker, and he's cheap. Who do you bring in, though? I'm not sure at this point. The Yankees need to go out there and find their left-handed version of Gio Urshela or left-handed Luke Voit, someone who the actual scouts love, but who may have been overlooked. A lot of people, myself included, in the heat of the moment, have called for the jobs of Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone. I don't think either of those guys is going anywhere this season, especially not during the middle of the season. Cashman has been the GM for over 20 years, and I know that he and Hal Steinbrenner are close, so I think they'll regroup as an organization and try to come up with a different solution. As for Aaron Boone, he appears to be the wrong guy for the clubhouse. I think he needs to take his laid-back act somewhere else. One thing that George Steinbrenner recognized about Joe Torre is that he was mentally tough, and I think you need a mentally tough person to be the manager of the Yankees. And I watch Aaron Boone give the same blasé comments after each game. He doesn't seem mentally tough. He seems defeated. And I'm ready for him to leave town. Personally, this is what I would do if I were Hal Steinbrenner. I would hire the best outside baseball consultants that I could. Someone outside the Yankees organization. A bunch of them. Maybe get a few different reports going. To evaluate the team, the organizational practices and philosophies, the scouting, the coaching, the clubhouse, and every single employee right down to the clubhouse chef and the medical staff. I would ask them to put together a report on every aspect of this organization. What does Brian Cashman believe? What are the core teachings of this coaching staff? What is the developmental staff in the minor leagues preaching? How is base running taught? What fielding fundamentals do you go over? How do scouts evaluate pitchers? Who was using the sticky substances and who was not? Then, I'm using that report to help my new GM, Theo Epstein, rebuild for 2022. Brian Cashman has been in the organization a long time. You might not want to fire him completely, so you promote him to some fancy job title with no responsibilities, and you let him collect $250,000 a year for the rest of his life and rappel up as many buildings for the TV cameras as he wants. For my manager, I'm telling Booney to kick rocks, and I'm bringing in Carlos Beltran. It's clear that every team has had guys that were abusing the rules. With technology the way it is and the MLB crackdown, I think things will even out. If A.J. Hinch can be managing, so can Carlos Beltran. At the very least, make him your hitting coach. Switch hitter, good major league hitter, long career, very smart baseball man. The next step is to do whatever it takes to convince Giancarlo Stanton to accept a trade and to pay as much of his contract as is needed to move him. You're telling me that some team that needs a DH wouldn't pay Giancarlo $6 or $8 million a year if the Yankees were picking up the tab the rest of his contract? Oakland loves getting guys for pennies on the dollar, and Giancarlo would put some fans in the seats. And Oakland is a potential playoff team that needs a DH. They could win it one of these years. But right now, Mitch Moreland is their DH, and he's doing nothing. Telling me they wouldn't take Giancarlo Stanton? Giancarlo could be out west. He wouldn't have to deal with the New York pressure. Gardner, gets the watch, the plaque, and the rocking chair. He's finished. Clint Frazier, have fun in Cleveland or San Diego. Glaber, work it out in AAA. Put up an 850 OPS at AAA for a month, and then you can come back. Then I would tell all my scouts to scour the earth. The majors, the minors, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Korea, Japan, Canada. Find me 2 left-handed outfielders that can step in, play defense, make contact, put up maybe a 800 OPS. Find me 2 of those guys. Find me a couple of switch-hitting prospects that we can put into the system at various spots and teach them to be versatile hitters so that we don't run into this problem again. The time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. Fortunately, you waited too long. Find me a cheap relief pitcher or 2. Guys that have been overlooked like Garrett Whitlock was. Construct the roster in a way that's responsible, flexible, balanced, young, and hungry. The thing about home run hitters, guys who came up their entire lives mashing home runs, is they haven't had to play a ton of normal baseball. They haven't had to move runners. Their job was to hit the ball out of the ballpark. That's why I like guys like Gio Urshela, because he's never been a good hitter until recently. He's just now learning how to hit for power, how to hit to all fields. I like DJ LeMahieu because he's a line drive guy. We need guys who know how to move runners around the bases. The object of a baseball game isn't to score the most runs on 3-run homers, which the Yankees aren't doing, by the way. The object of a baseball game is to cross home plate as many times as you can. And you can't always do it with long balls. You can't do it very often with walks. You've got to get guys who can move runners over. If you get a guy on second base to lead off the inning, the next batter needs to hit a ground ball to second base or to first base or through the right side. They need to hit the ball to the right side so that that runner can get over to third with less than 2 outs. And then what do you do with 1 out? Or with a runner on third and less than 2 outs? You look for something up in the zone. You don't try and hit a home run. You look for something up in the zone that you can barrel up, you cut down on your swing, and you try and hit a sacrifice fly. You try and get that run in. If the pitcher hangs a slider, makes a mistake, yeah, drive it out of the ballpark. But the Yankees are not doing the little things to score runs. Their team is too slow. They can't go first to third or score from second on base hits. They get thrown out all the time. Objective number 1 for Brian Cashman at the trade deadline shouldn't be to try and build a World Series roster this year, because it's not going to happen. You're not built that way. You need to try and get more athletic so that next year you don't start off 5-11 and start fighting your way up all year. You got to have guys that are ready to go from Jump Street, guys that want to be there, guys that don't walk around cocky, guys that walk around with something to prove. That's what we need. That's what New York fans expect. We want winners, not a bunch of overpaid crybabies. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps other Yankees fans find the channel. If you really enjoyed it, check out the swag section. We've got tons of great designs to support all your favorite Yankees. And if you simply cannot get enough Yankees content, check out the podcast version of this channel, The Frieze by NYY Recaps, available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Derek. Thanks for watching.